I know it's a lot harder to get out of bed when it's this cold. And so I have so much respect for everyone who has turned up today, Saturday morning. It's so easy to just, take the day off, sleep in. But I'm glad that you guys have joined us today for week 6 of our Find Happy series. And have you guys been enjoying it? Yeah. Has it been helpful? Honestly, my heart is that what we've been exploring will really practically help us in our daily life that we're living every single day. And I think that's what, we as a church kind of are all about, is seeing actually that God wants to be involved in our daily lives and actually help us navigate through everything that we face each and every day of our lives. So we're going to keep going on for another 2 weeks, and then we're going to wrap up the series on Find Happy. But I thought today to start off, I want to share some happy news. Is that okay? We've been doing that over the past couple of weeks, and today we didn't get our installment of happy news. So I thought I'll share with you some really happy news that happened to me this week. And it has to do with my dog again, Maple. Maple shows up, quite often in some of the illustrations I share. But Maple went for a groom this week, so she had her nails done and her hair done, and she's looking all flash. And so I went to pick her up, and the place we go to, they expect us to park like literally, I don't know, it's like maybe 500 meters down the road. And so I went and I picked Maple up, and I was walking her back to the car, and all of a sudden she really needed to pee, so she went on someone's lawn and peed. And then she really needed to do a number 2. Which wasn't a problem because I just, showed her. But then I realized, that realization that I don't have any bags with me, all right? And then I was in this tension, like, what do I do now? But unfortunately, this was at a massive intersection, peak hour traffic in the morning, and I just looked at Maple doing this number 2, and I looked up and I just saw a whole line of cars of people looking at me. I looked behind me, I saw houses, and I was like, what do I do? All right, so in my head, I'm contemplating, do I walk away? Do I just leave it there? Do I wait for traffic to pass by? And just as a good citizen, just, no one would have seen it. But then I'm even contemplating, like, how bad really is it to just pick it up with your hand, right? Like, is it that bad? And so at that time, I'm stressing, I'm praying, I put my hand in my jacket, and you won't believe it, but I had my face mask in my pocket, all right? And so my blue face mask is exactly what I used to pick up Maple's number 2. And unfortunately, it wasn't that good because it was quite warm as I was carrying it and dumped it into the bin. But I survived then. And honestly, that was just, I had so much gratitude because I didn't know how I was going to actually get out of that situation. And so that was my happy news for this week. I survived it, all right? I don't know, what would you have done? What would you have done? All right, walked away, got the hand out, I don't know. But pretty much that's what we're going to speak a bit about today is this tension of living with integrity and being pure in heart. Like, when we don't know, we know what's right and we know what's wrong, or we know what we have to do, but we don't know if we should do it or not do it. And that's the next beatitude that we're going to explore today. So I want to again recap, and the reason I want to recap is just so that hopefully we can memorize the Beatitudes. And like at the end of the series, we'll know, hey, these are all the Beatitudes. And so as we're going and navigating through life, we can remember these, and these can actually be practically helpful for us. So Jesus is speaking to a large crowd. and this is what he's sharing about how do we actually find happy. And he says, hey, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. He goes on and he says, hey, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek or the humble, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. That's what we explored last week, and just from some conversations that I've had this week, this was challenging. This is hard. This is, how do we actually live this out? But Jesus is saying, when he says blessed, he's saying, hey, you're actually happy when you do this, when you live this kind of life. And today he shares this beatitude, and it is, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed, happy are the pure in heart, for they will see God. When I read this week and I try to contemplate like what does this mean? Like, what is Jesus trying to communicate to this audience? What is he saying when he speaks and he says, hey, if you are pure in heart, what does it mean to be pure? And as I was thinking about this, the only thing I can think of is kind of, 100% orange juice. Any of you enjoy 100% orange juice? Right? Like, I like it when it's 100%, when there isn't any mixed, juice with it. Like, it's the real deal. That's what first came to my mind when I think of this word, pure. It's like it's genuine. It's 100%. All right? It's not contaminated. There's no hypocrisy in it. It's genuine. And I guess when Jesus is saying, hey, blessed, happy are those who are pure in heart, he's saying, hey, you're really happy when you're living a life of integrity. You're really happy when you're living a life that takes moral courage. When you're living a life of godly character. He's saying you're happy when you're actually living this purity. And so I think about this as I'm preparing this message, and I'm like, man, whoa, okay, why is Jesus saying this? Why is he trying to, make us feel bad about ourselves? Because when I think about 100%, genuine, authentic, and I think about my life, I think, man, I missed the mark. Like, I don't get there. And what I think Jesus is saying then in our next question is, so what does this actually mean to me? Why is this important to me? And I think what he's saying is this, is that your lack of integrity is robbing you from your happiness. Your lack of integrity, your lack of pureness, your lack of genuineness, your lack of actually following through with what you say you're going to do is actually maybe costing, it's robbing us from our happiness. Does that make sense? Because he says, happy are those who are pure in heart. All right? And so if we're not pure in heart, maybe then that lack, that area that is lacking in our lives is actually costing us our happiness. And when I think about this, I thought this purity, this integrity. Sometimes, the reason we're not pure, the reason we're not living a life of integrity, the reason we're making some unwise choices, the reason we have some wrong motives is because we think that this is actually going to bring us happiness. We think if we're deceptive, we think if we can just cut some corners, then this is actually going to make us full and happy and content. But what Jesus is saying, is actually, hey, that lack is actually costing us our happiness. King Solomon, he explains it like this. He says, the integrity of the upright guides them. In other words, as we follow a life of integrity, as we live out integrity, that really guides us in our decision making. And it probably is so helpful in the context of finding happy. But then he also shares and he says, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. In other words, I think the times when we are two-faced, the times where we are lacking purity, I think that is so destructive for ourselves. I think that is so hard for us. I think that's what piles up so much weight on our shoulders and stress. And I think that's exactly why King Solomon says, hey, the integrity of the upright, it guides them. You see, when Jesus shares this beatitude, I'm going to put it up again. He says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. When he's sharing this, he's got a large crowd in front of him and he's teaching. And this crowd is made up of a number of different people, but there's really two groups. There's a group of people who are really searching to see Jesus and to understand Jesus and to grow in their life. And then there's another group, and this group is actually the religious leaders of that time, all right? These were the guys who were ticking all the boxes. They were getting everything right in the context of their faith journey. And it's these guys who are actually watching and standing there, and they're not there to actually see Jesus. They're just trying to see where he's getting everything wrong. And as he shares this, he says, hey, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. It will be the Pharisees, the religious leaders at that time, who would think, no, wait. No, Jesus is cutting corners. Because you see, the way to really see God is if we follow every single thing that God has put out and that we actually came up with. In other words, all the moral laws, he says, if we follow that, we'll see God. He says, hey, if we actually follow all the ceremonial laws, we'll actually be able to see God. This would be the voice that the Pharisees would be sharing. And what Jesus is trying to show them is that, hey, to see God is very, very different. You see, he's saying, yeah, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. I think specifically when he's sharing this, he's really maybe trying to call out the religious leaders. Because one of the things that they were doing is that they had the appearance of these good people, faithful followers of God. But on the inside, there was a lot going on. They had wrong motives. At one time, the Pharisees, they actually call out Jesus because one of the ceremonial laws that they had was for them to wash their hands before they ate a meal, which isn't a bad idea, but some of Jesus' disciples didn't do that. And they actually called Jesus out, and Jesus actually says to them, hey, it's not on the outside that actually defiles a person, but it's really what's going on inside. It's what's happening in the heart. At another time, Jesus actually says, and he calls out the Pharisees, he says, hey, when you pray, don't be like the Pharisees who are hypocrites, all right, who stand on the corner and they just want to be seen for their long prayers, but their motives are so wrong. There's something impure going on inside of them. You know, when I think of this purity, when I think about integrity, I think of kind of this quadrant, and I'm going to put it up. This is something I learned many years ago, and I don't know if I actually got it right, but I tried to draw it out yesterday to try and help us see what Jesus is really getting at, where he's trying to lead us when he's speaking a bit about having a pure heart. And I guess it's got to do with our motives. And the first quadrant kind of says, we can do the right thing. We can have the right actions with what? The wrong motive, right? And we know that. We've seen that. We've experienced other people do that. We see other people do that. We do it ourselves, right? We do things, and maybe our motive is so wrong. The reason we're doing this is maybe just to be seen. Or maybe we do something good, but the reason we do that is because we just want to earn brownie points in someone's books, all right? And so, this is kind of the first quadrant of actually, hey, this isn't what Jesus is speaking about. But then if we go to the next one, the other thing is you could do a wrong action with actually a right motive, all right? You can actually do something, but it's wrong, but you actually have a right motive. And Jesus is actually saying, hey, this is also not what he's talking about. And then I think, this is where, I fall in quite often. I can do the wrong action with the wrong motive, right? And I can do stuff, and actually, I've just got bad motives, really. Like, this isn't what I should be doing, and it's a wrong action. It might be out of frustration. It might just be out of my selfish nature. But what Jesus is really getting at when he's speaking about the heart is he's getting to this. He's saying, hey, what I'm really after is I'm after the right action with the right motive. He says, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about having a pure heart. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about integrity, living a life with pure motives. Jesus is saying, hey, I want you to have the right action with the right motive. Now, I think if you think about all the Pharisees who were listening to this at that time, they would be like, putting their heads down. But I wonder about us. Because as I read this and as I think about myself, I'm like, man, there are so many flaws in my life. There's so much selfishness. There's so many times where, I have a right action, but honestly, if I really take the time to evaluate, my motives are just so wrong and so bad. That is what Jesus is kind of, speaking into. And I think if we think of culture, like, culture has this perspective that is very similar to the Pharisees. Like, as long as you look good on the outside and no one really knows what's going on in the inside, you're good, right? But Jesus is saying, hey, actually, it doesn't really matter how you look on the outside. What I'm really concerned about and what really is going to make you happy, what really is going to bring you contentness, is if I get inside. And I love how he uses the word heart, because as I thought about it, it's like, the Pharisees, they could dress up and they had so many different laws that they looked really good on the outside. But Jesus uses the word heart, and I thought of that. I thought, like, that's something that you can't get to yourself, right? Like, you can't get to your heart yourself, maybe, if you really try, I guess, but that's not going to do you any good. But, like, we can't get to our heart ourselves. And that, I think, is the bottom line that Jesus is really trying to communicate. So this past week, it was my birthday. Got another year older. And one of the things I was thinking is, like, if there's any advice I can give to someone today, is marry someone who loves celebrating birthdays and is a great gift giver, all right? Because, when my birthday comes around, like, man, Zolz just goes over the top, and I feel really bad when it's her birthday then. And, I got a lot of work to do. But I want to be open and honest with you guys today and share a secret. Is that okay? Can we keep it, yeah? Maybe, eh? Can I trust you? Do you have the right motives, all right? But I want to share a bit about what Zolz got me as a gift this week. She said to me, hey, Wesley, I think it would be a good idea, and I've got you this gift, and it is a massage, all right? But it's not any massage. It is a facial massage, all right? And I was like, what, And I thought, you know what? Actually, that's good. I'll do it. Let me do it. I'm 38 now. I've never, ever had a facial massage in my life. So, hey, book it in. I'm going to go and do it. So on that afternoon, I head over to the face massage clinic, I guess it is. I don't even know what you call it. And I park my car outside. And I must say, I was a bit anxious. I was like, man, I hope no one sees me, How embarrassing would that be? And even in my side, inside my head, I'm thinking, I'll just say I'm getting something for Zalzia. I'm getting her a gift. But anyway, they take me into a room there, and it's all dark, and they're playing this background music, and it's really relaxing. And they said, take your hat off. I had my hat on, and pretty much they get into my face, and they, scrubbed it and put moisturizer and massaged it, and it was quite, I don't know what the exact word is, but it was interesting, all right? But I was enjoying it. I thought, oh, well, And then eventually they, did the facial scrub, and then they brought this like steamer, and they put the steamer over my face, and they left me there for about 15 minutes, and my face just going as red as ever. And apparently that opens up my pores. But then what they did was they brought this, and the only way I can explain it is like they brought a facial rake, all right? And this isn't those plastic rakes that we have in the garden. This is like the metal ones. And they started to rake my face everywhere. It was brutal. It is painful. So I've got so much respect for everyone who goes for those facial massages. And then after that, they put this gel or this facial mask on me to cool it all down. And honestly, at that point, I just had enough. And I said, excuse me, can you please take a photo for me? Because I really need to document what I did my 38th birthday, all right? Just in case. And so I'm going to show you, this is pretty much how I looked, all right? I know. How crazy. All right, can we go to the next slide? Thanks, Chris. But I thought about it, and I thought, man, isn't it interesting that culture and all of us, we are so fixated on how we look and our appearance. And I mean, we know that. We look, most of us probably looked at ourselves before we left home in the mirror today. And it's interesting because, not that isn't important. I think that, we should look good and we should feel good about ourselves. But what Jesus is really trying to say is there's something even more important than looking good on the outside, and that is what's going inside in the heart. He says that's the part that he really wants to do a facial on. That's the part where he really wants to help us. So the best way to understand this, if we look at this, how can we, be pure in heart? Is as I understand this for myself, it's like I just can't do that by myself. It's just impossible. It's just I've got so many wrong motives. I've got so many ways that honestly, I just don't think I can be genuine 100% of the time. I can be pure. And I think that's Jesus' point. I think what Jesus is trying to illustrate is that we really need him to purify us. We really need him to make a difference inside our hearts. There's a story in the Bible about this guy. He's a king. He's called King David. And is an incredible guy. And God actually says he's someone who is actually, he's a man after God's own heart. In other words, he was passionate about God. He honestly just pursued God and wanted his relationship was strong with God. And it's this same guy, King David, who at one point sees a lady, not his wife, bathing on the roof next door, and he decides, hey, he wants that woman. And with his authority and his power, he gets this woman, Bathsheba, to come over to his place. And then he actually, he sleeps with her. She's actually married to another guy, and she eventually falls pregnant, and what he's trying to do is cover up all his mistakes, and so he tries to get her husband killed, and that doesn't really, at first he actually tries to get her husband to come back and sleep with his wife so that no one will know that it's actually, his baby. And her husband is such a man of integrity, his name's Uriah, that he decides, hey, as the rest of the army is still at war, he's not going to sleep with his wife because he just feels like that's not the right thing to do. And so David's plan fails, and eventually he actually makes a decree that he wants Uriah to be at the front line of a battle, and knowing very well that he would actually be killed there. And so David actually, keeps trying to cover up his spots where he's imperfect, his places where he messed up. He just keeps trying to cover it up. And eventually someone calls him out. Someone actually comes up to him and says, hey, I know what you did. I know what you did wrong. And one of the things I wanted to share today is David's response to when he's been called out. David's response to when he hasn't been holding integrity very well, when he is impure, when he's actually got, he's actually a hypocrite. I want to share with you his response that he actually says. And as I read this response to you, what I want you to do is I want you to try and see, look in the text and some of the words that I've highlighted. Look, what is God's role in his response, and look what is his role. Can we do that? All right. Look at this. After he's been called out, this is kind of his prayer. It's found in Psalms 51, and I'm reading from the Message here. He says, generous in love, God give grace. Generous in love, God give grace. He says, huge in mercy, wipe out my bad record. He goes on and he says, scrub away my guilt, soak out my sins in your laundry. And he says, I know how bad I've been. My sins are staring me down. Are you seeing what God's role is in here? Do you see what his prayer is and see what his role is here? He says, you're the one I've violated, and you've seen it all, seen the full extent of my evil. And I love that, because honestly, we can hide our motives from the people closest to us, but God, when he looks at us, he looks at our heart. He sees us. He knows what's going on. He knows everything that's happening inside of our hearts. And it's at this point that David would cry out that. And then he says, hey, you have all the facts before you. And he says, hey, whatever you decide about me is fair. Fair enough, right? I mean, David's the guy who's done the wrong, yeah, and he's like, you know what, God, I'm just trusting you in this. Whatever you think is right, that's fair. And then he says, I've been out of step with you for a long time, and the wrong since before I was born. And I love that, because I think that's kind of when we get out of step, I guess that's when, we go on our own path. I guess that's when we're living that duplicity, when we're actually, hypocrites, is when we're out of step with our relationship with God. It's easier for us to cling to our own selfish ways. Then he says, what you're after is truth from the inside out. Truth from the inside out. He says, enter me then, conceive a new, true life. Just see again what God's role is here and what David's role is here. And then he says, soak me in your laundry and I'll come out clean. Scrub me and I'll have a snow white life. And then he says, tune me into foot tapping songs. Set these once broken bones again to dancing. And I love that, because I think that's really what happens when we lack integrity, when we lack pureness, is really we come to this fragile place of brokenness, of guilt, of shame, of like, how do I leave that stuff behind and move forward? And sometimes we struggle with that the most. And yeah, David's just saying, hey, God, I want you to tune me. And I love that. Foot tapping songs. Set these once broken bones to dancing again. And then he says this, don't look too close for blemishes. Give me a clean bill of health. And then bring me back from gray exile. Put a fresh wind in my sails. And then he says this, lastly, he says, give me a job teaching rebels your ways so the lost can find their way home. I hope you picked it up as you read through that, what God's role is in this. You see, all the way through this prayer, what David is saying is he's saying, hey, God, I'm just owning what I've done. I'm owning what I've done. I'm taking responsibility for my lack of integrity, for my failures, for my faults. But really, I need your help to clean me up. every single space that he shares that, he says, hey, I need you to scrub me clean. I need you to put a fresh wind behind my sails. I need you, God, involved in my life. Pretty much this is what he's saying. If we go to the next slide, he says, it's pretty much the good news is that even though we have to own our choices and take responsibility for our lives, it's not up to us to create pure hearts for ourselves. Do you see that? I think this is the challenge when it comes to faith often, is we get confused in this space. Like there's a place where we need to own our stuff. We need to own our choices. And obviously we need to take responsibility for that. But honestly, it's not up to us to clean our hearts up. That's God's role. That's what He wants to do in and through us. And whenever we try to clean ourselves up, guess what? We're never going to make it. We're never going to get there. You see, and this is where Jesus steps in and says, hey, guess what? I'm the pureness. I'm the 100%. I'm the genuine. And what I'm saying is, hey, I want to do that in your heart, something you can't do yourself. Paul would phrase it like this. He would say, hey, and we all with unveiled face. In other words, with open face. And I think just with a posture of honesty, where we actually come clean and we say, hey, God, you already know everything going on in my life, so I'm just going to come clean, bringing everything, all the junk, the mess, bringing that all to you. And with unveiled face, we behold the glory of the Lord. Guess what happens? We are being transformed. We are being transformed. Not that we transform ourselves. No, as we behold God's glory, as we are authentic and genuine and honest, and we say, hey, God, this is the junk that I have, and I'm bringing it to you, He is transforming us from the inside out. And how does He do that? It says, He says, into the same image, from one degree of glory to another, for this comes from the Lord who is the Spirit. You see, as we grow in our relationship with God, as we behold Him more and more, we are being transformed into that same image. Therefore, the things that Jesus likes, well, guess what? I start to like them. You know, the places where I've lacked integrity so often, guess what? Now as I'm following Jesus step by step, the Spirit's convicting me and saying, hey, Wes, how about you think about changing that a bit? How about you invite me into that space to give you the strength that you need? I love a book that a number of us at Gracegate read a number of years ago. It's a very confronting book. It's called Scary Close, and it's by a guy called Donald Miller. And one of his great quotes that he has in this book is this. It says, grace only sticks to our imperfections. Grace only sticks to our imperfections. In other words, all that stuff, those secrets, the darkness, the bad choices we've made, that's where grace sticks to. And he says, those who can't accept their imperfections can't accept grace either. In other words, we need to own it. We need to say, hey, God, I know I don't get it right all the time. And that's why I'm trusting in you. And as we do that, that is grace's job to transform us from the inside out. Today, as we end, I want you to actually pull out those bags on your seat, all right? If it's your first time here, basically we've had this journal that we've been going through for the past 6 weeks. And what I'd love to encourage you to do is to take that home today and over the next couple of days, go through step by step some of the questions that are in there. But what I want you to do today is take that out, and there's a yellow piece of paper in there. I want you to take out that yellow piece of paper. I want you to grab the pen. And today I want us to do what David did. Today I want us to do where grace can really stick to. And what I want you to do is, only for you, no one's going to read this, going to do nothing with it. You're just going to write it, and then you're going to put it back in there. But we're going to play a song, and I want us to ask this question. Is what things are you allowing to creep into your heart that are bringing you down? What are some of those things that, even as I spoke today about, be it integrity or purity, those things are actually weighing you down. As a prayer today, I want you to actually just write that on the piece of paper for yourself, only for yourself, and just say, hey, God, today, basically what I'm doing as I'm writing this is I'm admitting it, confessing it, and then what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, God, I need your help with this. So can you do what only you can do with this? And then once you've done that, just pop it back in there. And when you get home today, just take that paper out, tear it up, and just acknowledge that God is going to do something as you keep admitting and bringing that to Him.